Romantic comedies. If you have a script with a girl, Jane, and she's bubbly and cute, but a little klutzy, she falls sometimes. And Jack. He's kind of the boy next door, maybe a little edgy, but he's really a good guy. Is your reader on the edge of their seat wondering if Jack and Jane will get together in the end? No! Let's talk about why. The good news about romantic comedies, they'll probably always be in fashion. They're a safe bet. They're not going to go out of vogue like zombies and vampires. The bad news about romantic comedies, they look so simple to write, but they are incredibly hard. So let's talk about the biggest problems I see in romantic comedies. This first one, I can't call it like a mistake or a problem because you can get away with it. It's just really hard. And it is the romance is the only thing happening. In other words, there's no bigger plot. There's no external plot. It's just a romance and there's nothing else going on. Sometimes there's not even subplots. So take the movie The Wedding Planner. There's a bigger plot. She's a wedding planner and then she ends up finding out she's planning the wedding of the guy she just met and she's interested in. So there's this whole thing about the wedding. Well, if you didn't have that, if she wasn't the wedding planner of his wedding, she was just a girl and she just happened to meet him and he happened to be getting married, then there wouldn't be that bigger plot going on to provide conflict. So like an American President where you have him the president and she's a lobbyist and they clash on a piece of legislation. So there's a bigger plot beyond just the story of them. It'd be a completely different story if he wasn't the president and she wasn't a lobbyist and he was just a guy and she was just a girl and they just happened to meet. So too often I see there's not a big plot, it's just about the two of them, and that can work. I'm not saying that can't work, but here's the problem. Because there isn't a bigger plot to support it, it really becomes so execution heavy. It's so much harder to create obstacles and conflict and why they can't get together. Now sometimes it can work. So you might be saying, well, what about like Sleepless in Seattle or When Harry Met Sally? Those are just about them. Absolutely true. But those are also just genius characters and amazing writing and great performances. But what they also had was a theme. They were very strong on the theme. So even though they didn't have like a bigger external plot, it wasn't necessarily the story of just these two characters. They were exploring bigger themes. So like in Sleepless in Seattle, in his story, they're exploring the idea, does love come twice in your life? Or is love something that once you have it and it's amazing, you're never going to find that again? And in her story, she was exploring, is life magic? Is there magic in life? Or is life just dull and you just go through the motions and it's boring? So when you're exploring a bigger concept, then it's more than just these two individual people. But what I usually see is it's just the story of just this guy and just this girl without kind of a bigger theme to make it more, or without a plot to make it more, and then it's tough to make that work. I'm not saying you can't. You could if you had like amazing dialogue and super interesting scenes and clever characters. You could make it work, but it's just really tricky. I've very rarely seen those scripts work because they just become so execution heavy. But they can. There's only one rule in screenwriting. Don't be boring. The next issue is stakes. I said in my video, you need high stakes in your script. You need high stakes in a romantic comedy, and usually those are completely missing in the amateur romantic comedies that I see. And you can have stakes at the theme level, at the plot level, and at the character level. So at the theme level, the movie Sleepless in Seattle, they're exploring those themes, right? Can you have love more than once in your life? Is life magic? Is there magic in life? Well, those can be high stakes for the audience and something that can get them invested in the movie because they want those things to be true. So if these characters represent those ideas and they want to believe that, they want those to be true, then the audience really wants those characters to get together to prove, yes, life can be magic. Yes, you can have love twice in your life. So you can have stakes at the theme level that can help get the audience invested in your movie and care about the movie beyond just Is Jane gonna get together with Jack? You can also have stakes at the plot level, so that's another way you can get stakes into the story. But the biggest place that you need to have stakes in your romantic comedy is at the character level. You have to show that these characters belong to each other so much that if they don't get together, their lives will just be worthless. And you don't do that by showing how happy they are together and how cute they are together. You do that by picking characters that are so different from each other that they change each other, and they change each other for the better. So you've really got to pick characters that are very different from each other, because too often I see in scripts, they're the same. It's like the same person in two different bodies. She's like average girl, he's just kind of average guy. Aren't they nice? Aren't they cute? And it just doesn't have any chemistry, and it just doesn't work. So you've got to show that if she doesn't get together with him, her character isn't going to change. And if he doesn't get together with her, his character isn't going to change. So take the movie Romancing the Stone. You've got the repressed librarian. She's not living a full life. And then you've got the swashbuckling adventure guy, and he might be living a wild life, but he might be a little too wild. So you can show that they need to get together because she needs to loosen up a little bit and enjoy life. Her life will be so much better. And he needs to learn to maybe plan ahead a little bit, maybe take his life a little more seriously, or it's not going to be as good as it could be. So you need to create stakes by making your characters absolutely need the influence of each other, or their lives might as well be dead. There's your life and death stakes. And in so many of my videos, I pull up this book because this is like my go-to character book. So this book has archetypes of female characters and male characters, and it tells you in the book how different archetypes clash and change each other. So you want to make sure you pick archetypes that do change each other. And so like the librarian and the swashbuckler from Romancing the Stone, that is in this book, and it shows you what they need from each other. So your romantic comedy has to have stakes. So many amateur romantic comedies, I don't see any stakes. We don't care if Jane gets together with Jack because they're just boring kind of average people, and if they don't get together, they'll each find someone else, and who cares? And that brings us to the next one, conflict. There's usually not enough conflict in the romantic comedies that I read, and again, this happens at the plot level because there's just kind of not really anything else going on besides the romance, or at just the scene level because there's a whole bunch of making nice throughout the whole thing, or at the character level because the characters have no obstacles to getting together. They're just kind of wishy-washy. I usually see things like they meet cute and they have this cute little date, and she's like, yeah, he's kind of nice, and then all of a sudden her douchey ex-boyfriend will come into the mix, or his douchey ex-girlfriend will come into the mix, and then he starts to go on some dates with douchey ex-girlfriend, even though she's so obviously horrible, and we want to smack him in the head and say, what are you thinking? Seriously? So you lose the character because now the audience is like, this guy's an idiot. Does he not see that she's douchey? And we don't care about her anymore because we're like, seriously, can she not see he's douchey? So they just have these like funky internal bad choice obstacles, but no actual true obstacles to them getting together. So we don't have conflict, we don't have obstacles, and again that gets solved by either having a plot that is beyond just the romance, or you get conflict at the character level because you wisely choose two characters that are so different from each other, they kind of get on each other's nerves and push each other's buttons and challenge each other, and that's where the good stuff comes from. So 40 pages of your characters making nice, but then not quite being sure, and then going out with douchey ex-boyfriend, and then I don't know which one. It's not good conflict, and it's not good obstacles. Speaking of conflict, something I will always remember, there's a couple things that they said. Ted and Terry, who wrote Shrek, they wrote the Pirates of the Caribbean, they're genius. I heard them speak and they talked about the making of Shrek. And they spoke about the scene where Shrek first sees Fiona in her ogre form and they fight. They actually fight. And they said, the executive said, no, we can't have them fighting. They can't be physically fighting. You have to take that out. And they fought for it. They said, no. That's important because when you show conflict and they're battling together, that's how you show they're equals and they belong together. So if you really want to show that your characters are a match and they belong together, they're at the same level, then you put them in conflict. So too many scripts thinking making nice and making things super cute shows they belong together, when the opposite is actually true. If they get into conflict, now you're showing that they're equals. And another problem that a lot of screenplays have, and it's because there are really no obstacles to them getting together and there is no conflict, is the contrived misunderstanding. So if the screenplay is them making cute, nice throughout the whole thing, but then sometimes hanging out with douchey ex-boyfriend or douchey ex-girlfriend, and they don't know if they belong together, and there's no conflict and there's no obstacles, the screenwriter knows they need to have some big climax. So they come up with some ridiculously contrived misunderstanding. Like he decides he's going to give her a surprise birthday party, and his sister is flying in for the party because he wants her to meet his girlfriend. And so she sees a text on his phone saying, "Can't wait to see you tonight, Cindy." And she knows he's made up some kind of suspicious reason for why he can't see her. Well, it's because he's planning a surprise party. So then she completely freaks out. "I knew he was cheating on me. I hate him. I'm not getting together with him." And she gets on a bus for Timbuktu, and then he has to race after her and save her, and it's just ridiculous. So you can't have some little tiny ridiculous misunderstanding suddenly provide conflict at the end when we had no conflict and obstacles throughout the whole thing. And speaking of Bus to Timbuktu, another problem, sudden action movie. A lot of screenwriters know that you need life and death stakes, and they know you need a big climax and it needs to be exciting. So all of a sudden, this story that was just average girl, average guy, oh, we don't know if we belong together, we kind of do, but oh look, douchey ex-boyfriend's back, I don't know, maybe I want him. Well, then all of a sudden they have the contrived misunderstanding at the end that forces them apart, and then they all of a sudden turn it into like an action movie. She's on the bus to Timbuktu and it gets taken over by terrorists, and he's got to pull out a machine gun and save her. It all of a sudden turns into this crazy action movie to provide a climax that had nothing to do with what came before it. So be careful of that. Another issue I see with the endings of romantic comedies is no one makes a tough choice. The way you show a character has truly changed in their arc, and in romantic comedies you still need character arcs. The way you show that they have changed is they make a choice that is different than they would have made before. So the problem that I see in the amateur romantic comedies, she's entertaining douchey ex-boyfriend, and she's like, I don't know, do I want douche guy or do I want this nice guy? Which the audience is like, lady, you're crazy. But anyway, what they'll do is they'll have her walk in on him having sex with a friend or something, and she'll be, oh my gosh, you're horrible. And then she'll go to nice guy. Well, she didn't make a choice. The situation made the choice for her. Douchey ex-boyfriend kind of made the choice for her. So she's just going to the guy we want her to be with by default. That's her only choice. So you want to make sure someone's making a tough choice in the end, and that they have character arcs. Which brings up the final issue that I see with romantic comedies, point of view. You want to kind of pick a lead in your romantic comedy, even if you're going back and forth from one to the other. And for some reason, I see this so often, someone will pick one of them as the lead and we follow them for like the first half. Then all of a sudden we start shelling out to the love interest, and then by the end, the one we started with becomes the secondary character and the other one kind of takes over. It's like the whole beginning is focused on Jane, and then suddenly halfway through we start to go out to Jack, and then finally in the climax, she's passive and isn't doing anything, and it's Jack who's making all the decisions and has the end of the arc. So it's like we have the beginning of Jane's arc and the end of Jack's arc. We don't have a complete arc for anybody. So you need to stay consistent on point of view. So write those romantic comedies. They will always be popular. There will always be a market for them. And if you want the Bible on writing romantic comedies, there it is right there. It's writing the romantic comedy. This is gonna go through things like the art of being funny. It's called the romantic comedy. You gotta learn how to be funny. And it's got things on dialogue. It's got things on making steamy sex scenes, talking about the cute meat, and the basic structure for a romantic comedy, because it has its own structure. So writing the romantic comedy, I'll put the link below. I hope this video helped you. If it did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will talk to you later.